Hey,
What's going on?
what's happening?
Hello, internet.
Well, welcome.
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 For the eighth
Welcome.
time to talk about
Yeah.
this show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the eighth rant session.
8 episodes.
Hey.
It's like, oh,
Eight.
this is almost Star Wars therapy, is what this should be called here, instead of coming at Johnny BS. I think this should be labeled Star Wars therapy. But yeah, guys, welcome to be live. As we told you guys, we're going to go live with our episode 8 reaction and season finale reaction. So a lot of talking points. We don't want to waste any of you guys' time. But before we get going, let's let our guy DP let you guys know where to find us at.
Nerdcyclopedia.com, people, your favorite website where you get all your favorite social media apps. Twitter, which is now X, it's been X or whatever, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, question mark. We're at Nerdcyclopedia. Make sure that you do follow us on your all your favorite social media platforms. If you're listening to us on podcasts, we're on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Guess what? We are there. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Smash that subscribe button and also hit that notification button so anytime that we're on, you know where we're on. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you as well. Make sure you join in our Star Wars group of Carbon Egg Bounty BS, the Star Wars group, where we talk about everything Star Wars. And drop us a line, drop us an email. So we love getting some email from you and some feedback. We have a new email, nerdcyclopediafeedback@gmail.com. It is free to us. It's free to us. It's free to you to send us an email.
Now, you sure about
Yes.
that? Are you sure?
I'm
Sure.
positive.
Are you certain?
At least today,
I'll tell you
Not
this
as
much.
short.
I'm not seeing
Sure,
any
not
money
as
off
short.
those emails. That's for sure. No money to me. So that
You're,
I
you're about as sure. You're about as sure as this episode title, huh?
Oh, missing.
Ooh, already starting in.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, we can just kick it off. Like, I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like,
So look,
I'm
let's
just,
do
I'm,
this. Let's do this because we all gave our pre-finale ratings last week, right? Why don't we just start right there? And I'll tell you
All right.
what, T Mitch. I mean, I love the initiative, frankly.
Yeah.
That you
I'm
want to go
keeping it.
first.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it there at a 4. I mean,
Okay.
I had, I really thought that this would go up to like a 5.5 ish, but I'm keeping it at a 4. I mean, bro, like I try to say, like, I mean, it was structured. We didn't get any payoffs. I literally told you guys early on what was going to happen. So we played the role reversal. Like, it's just weird. Like, so now this isn't two different people. It's a clone. Like, come on. Like, it's all over the place. I guess she meant well as a director. I mean, it wasn't like necessarily, I guess, the worst show in the world, but it's just all over the place. It really is. I'm like lost searching for answers at this point, which we'll get into. So it's a 4 just because I guess I'll keep it at a 4 because we got Yoda, which I cannot wait to discuss this. So yeah, we'll keep it at a 4.
Wait, was that Yoda at the end?
Stop it, Ken! Don't do that. Don't do
What
this,
if,
mate.
what if it
Come
was,
on.
dude? What if it was?
No,
Yoda?
like I don't think that was Yoda. I mean, honestly,
It was.
let's
It
get
was.
real. No,
Yeah, I'm dead serious.
He would
I'm
have
dead-
made himself known, right? I mean, I'm just saying.
Stop.
So what I'll have to say, this finale ended this season well. We understand what kind of what transpired, and we understand my favorite part of this is showing the Jedi as criminals, because that's where
that's
that's
Star Wars.
what starts the saga.
Oh
That's
my
what
God.
starts the saga.
Hey, can we
because the
pause real
Jedi
quick?
are conniving.
Can we time out? Can we call a time out?
And they are unwilling to accept the mistakes they make, and they cover stuff up. They're actually very much like our, particular
Empire.
climate we have now with politics. There's a lot of cover up, and I think this show described that to a T. In fact, I like that this Rancourt was shown, because that guy is by far my favorite character in this entire series, because he's the only one that's willing to stand up against the criminals and want to call them out in front of the entire Senate. And if you look him up on the internet, and that actor, he's got stature. I've seen him in all kind of stuff, horror movies, all kind of stuff. And he has a very well-spoken and diplomatic presence to him.
Yeah, he's a very good actor.
Very good. And I like the character. I like the fact that he stood up to, I don't know, I don't have much respect to Vanastra. I don't think that Jedi is particularly a leader of any sort. She seems to be very, like, when the going gets tough, she gets going, but she doesn't trust anyone to follow her. So she's a poor leader. And I mean, I think that this was a finale. I think it tied up the story, and if there's a season 2, we know where it's gonna we know where it's gonna start. So that's the point of this. There's a story. We learned about some characters. It's a different story than we thought it was going to be, but a story nonetheless. Great action. Lightsaber clashing.
What?
Loved when Osha changed the shadow crystal. Very dramatic. And there you go.
What's your number? Can we get a number?
Like you were at 7.3. You were 7.3 last week. I've got it on record.
Yeah, I'd say just maybe a 7, just because I would have liked to have seen more people buy it. Like Soul dying, that was a great moment for me, because he got what he deserved. He was the master criminal, if you ask me. But I would just say it's a 7.
Oh man!
And that's for the series.
Ken, were you just, when you were talking about the Jedi being evil and all that stuff? Were
very
you
very evil. Are
you taking a piss, or you being honest about this?
I'm totally honest. I mean, I think the Jedi, because the Jedi being so lascivious, gave room for the Galactic Empire to.
Could I ask you one serious question, since you've watched Star Wars since the original? You really believe that George wanted that to be told? So now there's no.
I think when we got the story, A New Hope, I think the Jedi, because all we heard about was their fire has gone out of the galaxy. They were extinguished. We don't know why. Seems that the universe may be a little more opulent without them. But I'm just asking. I think that all needed to be explained, why the Jedi just found themselves on the outs, because they were a formidable group of leadership that overstepped, and this is what happens when a government oversteps.
All right, that's all I needed. We'll get into it. That's crazy. I didn't know the Jedi.
I'm just telling you that the story is the story. You cannot change.
I know. I'm just asking your opinion. I'm asking your opinion. You're okay with the Jedi being evil? All right.
Absolutely.
Cool. Oh,
never liked him to begin with. Obi-Wan was a wuss.
We got. Hey, I love that this is recorded live. So
you can't run from these. You can't run from these opinions. They're on the record.
Wait. So who's next? This is crazy.
Change my opinion. Go ahead.
This is crazy.
Change my mind. Mind.
This is great. Who's next? I mean, this is one of the greatest shows ever. So let's keep it going.
Hey, I'm not down and out like T Mitch. I mean, I think he was just, hey, it is what it is. T Mitch, I hear you and everything. I give it a 6. So and I think I probably would give it a 7 if it wasn't for the actress, the lead. She is just horrible to me. I mean, she does nothing for the scenes to me that she's in to save, like, the show, to like carry the show and everything. And for her to be, the lead in the show, I think was just a huge mistake as far as like, putting her in the center and stuff. And on top of that, having the audacity to have her as twins, that was just like, to me, just not it was just a big miss for me. Other than that, I like this episode. I thought it was a decent finale. I still really don't understand everything that went on in the show. Maybe that's because it was, what it was as far as like the structure of it, maybe didn't really understand. But for the most part, I'm not down like, like T Mitch on it. I've seen like, well-written shows. I've seen worse shows. This is sort of like, like I said last week, mid, if we want to call it that and everything. And definitely they could have did better. As far as like Jedi being evil, I like the fact that they're playing with I like the fact that they're doing something different, trying to show us a side as like a reason why they may have turned or went in a certain direction with it. Because in certain aspects, you can't have a group totally be good, without some sort of turmoil. I don't think they're necessarily, maybe evil is a too strong a word and everything, but sort of disjointed and just don't have themselves together to the point where they end up being, and and later down the line looked at as like these ultimate warriors and stuff, and because some history may be lost in there, you may have like versions of history being told throughout like history. We see it on Game of Thrones, like certain things are just being told where you don't really have proof of what happened in the past and everything, so you only get versions told by passed on by whoever had the last memory and stuff. So it is what it is with them. I would have definitely preferred to see more Sith stuff or whatever, if you want to call it. I thought they dropped the ball with that teaser of whoever was behind the scenes that they seen. I'm like, how could y'all tease that and just not go back to that? That doesn't make any sense to me. But like I said, I mean, I like the Yoda tease at the end, and I'm curious to see where they will go on the season 2.
I guess it's my turn. So I'm at a 5.2. This is an increase for me of about 0.7, which means that I like this episode more than I like the rest of the series. And I think, DP, you hit a lot of the reasons that I liked about this episode. You too, Ken. There's action. The plot moves forward. Things are going on. The characters seem to have their own motivations. And there's a really great space chase through that, the ring planet that I liked a lot. Can't mess that up. Wherever you put that in the Star Wars show, that's going to be cool no matter what it is. What's up with Basil messing with the guns and running around? Like, is Basil really the Sith Lord? Was that whole thing they showed us a misdirection? That's not Darth Plagueis. Basil himself, the tracker.
The Acolyte. That was the Acolyte.
That was the Acolyte. Who knows who the Acolyte is? Did they answer the question? I think they want us to think, or they're wanting to imply that Osha is the Acolyte. But here's my thing about this here's what I didn't like and why I couldn't really give it I couldn't get into the 6s or even the upper 5s, is why isn't that May? Shouldn't that just be May, the one who's been training all this time, especially if she has exactly the same power potential as Osha? May just sort of like, it seems like as soon as Sold's like, hey, I killed your mom, May was like, you know what, the dark side's not for me. It's gonna be a pass for me, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because she wasn't also filled with that rage that Osha was suddenly filled with. So I think this is like when you try to do too much, when you try to paint too intricate a picture for your skills, and really when all you need is like a red square. Give me a red square on this one, and I'm going to be happy. But no, you had to try to draw a cube, and you had to try to put details on it. You had to try to make it spinning and animate it. And there was no reason to do any of that. I just needed a red square. So that those would be my primary gripes with the show. I echo that. Twins, and are they different? Are they the same? I don't know. To me, the performance lacked charisma, and I was sort of just thinking like, hey, let's see a different conflict than this conflict. I will say, seeing a lightsaber turn red, pretty rad. I gotta say, I like that. And we've been talking about lightsabers turning red. Cool. We've been talking about our lightsabers turning red. We've been using. I know I started using that. We started using that as like a, just a saying for, hey, you're being evil. So, and is righteously punishing the person that deserves to be punished here, which is Soul. Is that even dark sidey? Frankly, I know it can be revenge, but is it all the time? I don't know. So to me, I don't know. This is like, it's like going to a restaurant, you hear great things about it, and you get there and the food's all right. To me, they could have made a much better movie out of this than a series. I think my real issues with this are going to come down to pacing and not having enough plot to go around, and then trying to jam way too much into this last episode. And I'll go back to my comments previously about the structure of this being put together like some sort of intricate puzzle box. If the twist is that Soul is in a crazy obsessed person, which there's evidence in the text to suggest that yes, the issue really was his obsession, just like we find out at the end of this, then what I should see should be more obsession from Soul. There should be more clues that he's got this dark energy coursing through him. I mean, his Padawan that he's actively training gets murked, and shouldn't that trigger him in some way if he draws these too close attachments? So I would like to see more character consistency there. And I found myself interested in all the parts of the story that weren't being told to me. I found myself wanting to see more of the Sith Master with the yellow eyes, right? We can guess that's Darth Plagueis. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows what the story is? I want to see more about the Senate. I want to hear more about the bureaucratic evil that you get whenever you have an entity that's powerful like this. And I think the comment that, hey, even the Jedi can't keep this thing clean forever, right? That makes sense to me, because every police organization has some of these skeletons, right, that we hear about way, way, way down the line. Even something as certain as J. Edgar Hoover's cross-dressing or something of that line, right? There's always something weird that's being tamped down below the surface, and it doesn't come down to the people being any more or less evil than any of the other people. It just comes down to their access to power. It comes down to their access to the ability to get revenge. And so I think that the story does some good things. I like the stranger character, Kamir, very interesting. But to me, it's like the switcheroo that you do, especially the second switch where now May and Osha are in different places. Why did you do that? There was no need to do that. And is it being Osha instead of May actually do anything to the story? No, because they're literally the same person. If you just sent May back to Kamir and wiped Osha's mind, you'd be in the same exact situation. Heck, you could even wipe Osha's mind and tell her that she's May. I mean, you can do all that stuff. And so, if we're going to see more of the story of Osha and Kamir, which is what it seems like they're going to show us, and Yoda's going to have to show up. And now Akai Adimundi says in The Phantom Menace is propaganda. So that's very interesting as well. I don't know. The Jedi aren't evil. They're just not immortal. They're not gods.
They're not evolving. They're not changing to the current climate of what's really going on. And I think, not listening to what you said, Steel City, I think like the biggest complaint that I have is I didn't really get a good understanding of what the twins were. I mean, it really wasn't explained. Soul kind of did at the end. We kind of got okay, so they're the same person, and they were kind of split, and they used the Force, and it got a little bit, it was a little murky to me.
A little bit?
It didn't really make it. It would have been better if they just said, her mother made, the mom made one and said, no, I'd rather have two because that's more powerful, and like split, tore them apart using this Virgins. And that would have been a great flashback scene when they were created, like something that. But
or you could have you could bring Darth Plagueis into it and have him be there and saying, "I can help you create life so that you can do whatever
the mother,
whatever this ascension thing is, and that will be, and then it'll help you attract fall." There could be a deal with the devil struck there that brings the Sith back into it. That would be interesting, and they could still do that, especially since it's been renewed. So there's more. There's more here. And hey, the second season could be good. The second season could be way better than this. It's possible.
It has to be. We said this about Bad Batch as well. So
we did. And then season 3 was really good. Season 2 was mid. Season 1 was good. Season 3 is really good. I like Bad Batch season 3 a lot. And we liked Omega a lot by the end of that too, which means there's still redemption possible for
some of the characters.
So I don't know. To me, I'm higher on this than I was before, and I think it's because I could see the whole story. But they should not have constructed this like a puzzle box. They should have just told me the story. If season 1 was anything, it was the story of how Soul's obsession with getting this Padawan that is powerful, so that and how it says something about him. and how he should be proud of Jackie. Even he should be saying, "This is the one I picked. Look how crazy powerful she is." And then she gets killed, and it should set him off, and he should be doing stuff then that gives Osha pause, because why else is she suddenly doubting this person that trained her for so long? Also, hey, she was gonna, why did you kill my mom? She was gonna murder you and your sister, or inhabit your bodies and eliminate your consciousness, or whatever,
whatever he needed to do to make up
Jedi reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you could come up with that, but look, you've got someone you haven't seen in 16 years who has an evil master. They've been committing murders and framing you for them, and you're just gonna believe right off the bat and just, I don't know, flip to evil like that. Seems specious, and it makes me think to myself, why is it that you flip the roles here instead of just? I think it's more interesting to me if this is the story of May and Soul, and how Soul picked wrong. He should have picked May, right? Because May is the reliable student. That's more interesting to me than this whole change of heart thing or change of horniness thing with Manny Jacinto, who does look awesome, by the way. So to me, there's just meat on the bone that was left. I want something a little bit different than I got, which is okay. I'm allowed to want something different. They're allowed to make something different than I want. I'm not 100% negative on this, but geez, guys, this should have been a movie. This should have been 2 hours of movie, not 8 hours of series, and all the things that we hate, which is showing me stuff out of order, wasting too much time, and then trying to cram too much stuff in at the end. All that stuff in a movie, I think, has less of an impact. Because you're not sitting around for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
It's easier to digest when it's like that too.
Yeah,
like if it's just in a solid,
or should have been dropped all at one time. Instead of 8 weeks and stuff, it could have been dropped all at one set, like a Netflix show.
Yeah. Because if you watch it like that, just binge it. It plays out a little more. It's a little more smooth. The transitions are smooth. You kind of remember certain things. Even the fact that I think that the episodes are a little out of order, but if you do watch it in order, all in like 1 or 2 sittings, it makes it play out better.
This is the poster child for the. I'm telling you, this is going to be the poster child for the fan edit. It's going to be the one where someone's going to go in and chop off all the fat, and you're going to be left with a lean 1.5, 2 hour story that feels
make sense.
Like it makes sense. It feels like it makes sense. It feels like the things the characters are doing aren't being shrouded in mystery for no reason other than the order in which you chose to present them to me, right? Like nobody's really that. Like Soul at no point is confused about what happened there. So he should not be confused about who's being targeted, why they're being targeted, what's going on. Like they should just have come clean with that right off the bat. And they could have done that in 2 seconds if the audience already knew, because they watched it happen at the very beginning. Heck, you could even have all that crap happen, then do the Acolyte theme, and whatever you want to do, whatever pop song from the 80s they want to stick in there, or
if we want to be honest, to me, I was actually out on Soul, as an actor too. I think you were mentioning that it could have been done better, where he showed like a little bit more emotion, so some sort of something about him to give us that type of energy that he was about to be turned, or turn and everything. But I mean, throughout like the series, I wasn't really connected to the Soul character.
So I think Soul was obsessed with the Virgins itself, right? And May and Osha, as they represented that, then it makes sense, because when he's animated again and showing anger, showing desperation, and showing that he wants to find this Virgins, it's because he realizes they're both alive now. And before, he had no way to prove that this was the case, that he had no way to prove that they were, a couplet, so to speak, that they had a rhyme and that it was that scene. But also he did have that evidence, because Torben did that test and they found out they were the same person based on that test. So if you ran my DNA, you'd always have the test spit out of my DNA, profile. It's not like that would go away if I died. It'd still be there. That's actually how they solve a lot of murders is grabbing your DNA off you after you're dead. So they did have evidence, right? Why not just present that and be like, yo, some weird stuff went down. Yo, there were witches. They were making forced children. Here's one of them. Here's those.
And there were 2, actually.
So they would have been a lot better off
Mm-hmm.
telling the truth. But look, the bureaucratic ennui or the bureaucratic incompetence or the banality of evil or whatever you want to call it caused them to keep this secret when probably everybody would have been better off if they would have just said there was weird witch stuff and punish Soul however they were going to punish him and not let him be teaching younglings, which is what he's doing at the beginning of this, which if we knew what he was up to before and how he got obsessive about kids and started getting violent, we would not, like, that scene would have seemed very weird and different and kind of creepy and scary. So I think they kind of wanted to have their cake and eat it too on Soul, and they didn't I don't know, telegraph the real darkness that would have had to drive him to do those behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, again,
Give a little bit more motivation there.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just like they could have, without expending any more money, right? Without it costing more, you could have done a better product. So there's just too much waste.
T Mitch, why were you so out on okay, were you offended with like the way the Jedi was portrayed in this series?
No, I mean, this, like I said, if we were doing this story, what she did, this gave her this idea of the High Republic was giving her a blank slate, right? So we thought High Republic, she can do her own thing. There's no canon. However, we did the Ki-Adi-Mundi thing. Now Yoda's involved. So now we're essentially taking George's story and we're like creating our own canon now, which is like causing this is what blew the internet up. If she would have did her own thing and kept legacy characters out of it, because this is only 89 years pre-Phantom Menace. So now you're going to sit here and tell me that not only are the Jedi this corrupt, but Master Yoda is like involved in this, and so nobody sensed that Saul was evil in the whole damn temple. Nobody can read his mind because he sure read everybody else's mind when they had issues. So that crosses that issue now when we go forward, right? So okay, so now nobody cared that Saul was corrupt. Nobody knew that Vanestra was lying the whole time. It creates more. It breaks more canon than it does. If she would have stuck to her own story, like I liked it, and that's what I talked about. There was good meat on this show that you didn't have to bring in Yoda. You didn't have to talk about Ki-Adi-Mundi. If they just stuck to where this was and maybe did the whole Plagueis thing leading close to Phantom Menace, yeah. But like when you do some of the things they did, which I consider canon and rule-breaking storytelling ideas in Star Wars, that's what made the show divisive.
So it's like when someone pulls a fire alarm. Correct. There's no fire. You're like,
yeah. It's like, why? There's no reason to show Yoda. Like, honestly, I don't know if they were trying to do the Luke thing. Like, there was literally no reason because that just creates more issues. So Ken, you're a guy. Like, how do you explain that Yoda is just letting these people lie and like, you know what I mean? Like, it just.
I don't think he was letting anyone, because the ongoing message with Yoda, right, is that the dark side, lying, cover-ups, criminal activity, that's all dark side, is clouds judgment and clouds the Force.
So he wouldn't sense it?
It's impossible for him. Why did Yoda not see? I mean, he sort of
he did. Come on now, let's bring it back, Ken. He did.
But he didn't want to train Anakin. He said that was a bad idea, but he didn't really say why. He couldn't see what was going to happen, because
this is the reason. That's the only playoff you can tell me now. He didn't want to train Anakin because of this. I can stick with that, but the rest of the stuff. So you're telling me he couldn't see. However, he saw how Anakin fell. So you're telling me, based on evidence, factual evidence, when he saw Anakin's feelings towards his mother, you would not see the fact that the way Saul's been moving. You would not see the fact the way that Vanestra's been moving. How do you explain that?
I think Saul didn't see it either. I think it was kind of thrown. It was thrown at him. He even said he didn't know that May survived. He was trying to save them both. He had to make a decision.
But you wouldn't think this conflict wouldn't be sensed by Yoda. I'm just asking, based on what I've seen factually, this whole kind of like and he's been hiding this.
Okay, so let's say Yoda could sense all of this, all the conflict and all the problems, because he's that level of power.
He does.
He does?
That's factually correct. Every time a Jedi died, he sensed it. Do we want to rewatch episode 2 again? Or?
No. I mean, since the conflict.
I mean, did he always have that ability? Always, like, did he grow like to have?
I mean, he didn't know Palpatine was a Sith Lord. He
didn't.
There were a lot of things
but by then
he couldn't sense, and it was all
by
due to
then
the
he
fact
was
that his maybe Yoda's judgment's clouded too.
By then he was clouded. This is 85 years. Keep in mind he doesn't age the same, so I imagine he's that powerful.
This would be something like that happened. I mean, from our frame of reference, like 8 years ago, like 2016. I can remember 2016 like pretty well. Like, you know what I mean? It's not so far behind the bend.
Couldn't.
Yeah, no, right. It was a traumatic year for we all went through a lot that year. So, you know what I mean? Like, he should remember that. But if they're saying no to Anakin, I mean, the reason should be like, well, we already did this once. It didn't work out. Here's the way it didn't work out. And then Qui-Gon should be like, well, his mother's not dead, first of all. So as long as she doesn't die, everything will be great. And she'll never die. So everything will be awesome the whole time. And then as soon as, but then look, if they're saying that in Phantom Menace, which they're not, when he kills all those people in revenge in episode 2, you'd be like, oh, I guess that's what they meant when they said, as long as his mother's fine, then he'll be all right. So, you know, I get that killing the killer of your mother, right, is one of the things that's a step to the dark side. And I also think Yoda should be learning from these mistakes. I mean, this is not something he was involved in. He was off meditating like Torben or whatever Yoda's been up to.
Would this even be the first mistake that he made?
If it is, it would make sense, because if this is the point where the Jedi start, their political power and their ability to get a seat at the table becomes more important than what they're actually doing, which is trying to obey the will of the Force, then it makes sense. And that's why the senator makes a lot of really good points about, you know, when you empower a religion, ultimately that it leads to the ends justifying the means.
That was a great speech, by the way. That was a great line, great wording. Presented well. I mean, that was legit. Like, we need that kind of talk. We do. We really do. Yeah. We need someone that's just going to say it like it is. Right. And it is when religion starts to take power like that, you end up in a very rough place.
It's never a good idea. It's never a good idea to enshrine a God King for one very simple reason, and that's that there's no such thing as a God King. There's no such thing as a philosopher king. So the whole point of Plato's Republic is that you can't wield power and do a thing that is expedient in foreign policy and be perfectly just. It's impossible to do because it leads to your destruction. That's pretty much the whole point of Plato's Republic, according to me. I'm not a lay person when it comes to those things, but that's what I think. So the point is, if the Jedi can't get involved in politics and try to have their own sort of institutional control over the Force, and I think that's an interesting. See, this is why it's not a total failure, because that's interesting. That's an interesting contrast to the Jedi of the prequel era, who are bossed around by the Chancellor. The Chancellor tells them where to go. The Chancellor tells them what to do, and they do things. They're under the at least oversight of the Chancellor's office in that time frame. And you can imagine that being a reaction to these events. That, oh man, well, sure looks even if the Jedi appear to be lying, that's a real problem. You know, there's this anecdote where Julius Caesar's wife is accused of infidelity, and it's pretty obvious that she didn't do anything. But Caesar divorces her anyway and says Caesar's wife has to be beyond suspicion, above suspicion, completely unquestioned. And if you're going to put the sort of power, which is complete monopoly over all Force usage, right? If you're going to put that power in someone's hands, then they have to be trustworthy. And as soon as it turns out that they're not, you need to act. So it's interesting to see that the Senate here is attempting to claim control of the Jedi, which we know, because of our perspective, is the mechanism that is used to destroy them. Literally, that is what is done. So that's very interesting too. And again, my problem is, why are you telling me all of this right now? That senator's speech could have been at any point in time here, because this investigation was going on for all 8 episodes. That could have been in episode 2 or 3. It could have, I think it had a pretty big impact on what the point of this story is. And I would have liked to have seen that so that I could be ruminating on that while I'm watching these episodes go down, while I'm watching Soul go further and further and further and further down this deadly pit of obsession, where he's just obsessed with this, finding out what this virgence is, which he should be. And we should have seen more of that earlier. So
See,
not showing me that in the
that's
flashback.
what the Jedi should have been focusing on, is the investigation part of the thing. What they were trying to do is enforce the thing. I mean, they weren't just investigating. They want to write the rules and enforce the rules. And you can't do that. I think that's where governments fall. If you're gonna tell us what to do, and these are the things you got to do, and you got to be you're that invested in it, you can't also be the police and enforce all those rules. And I think the Jedi were trying to do both instead of just investigating this crime, which they would have found out.
It sounded like they got too much involved in the politics and stuff, which sort of like led to what we got in the Phantom Menace and led to like their ultimate downfall and stuff. You know, they should have just stuck with what they knew.
Yeah,
space wizardry.
They weren't trained to be leaders in that sense. They were trained to be the protectors of peace, peacekeepers. Right? I mean, that's what they were. That's what they were in the known universe. They weren't the Senate. They weren't the Republic. They were the police, basically.
Think about them. I've made this comparison. I think that's accurate, and I made this comparison where they're the FBI, right? And if the FBI said, "Well, we should be completely free from oversight because we'll always do the right thing," and then all of a sudden we find a lot of instances where they're not being completely honest, right? You would want them to have oversight. You would want them to be brought under institutional control, just like
college committee would need to be brought up to find out what's going on.
Well, this begs another question, which is, what did the Jedi learn from all this? Right? I mean, obviously they need to step up their combat training significantly because they're outclassed by even the Sith apprentice, and now there's at least two Sith running around. So I think you can draw a clear line from that to the Clone Wars and to their assuming a military responsibility because they're in the chain of command of the commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that I think could lead to a position where, okay, these Jedi did get run, but look, the next generation of Jedi and the generation after that, which will include characters that we do know, like Dooku. Count Dooku is probably like 20, 30 years away from being born, therefore 20, 30 years away from being a youngling under the tutelage of these exact Jedi. Right. So we should see in a couple of decades that entire movement to, well, now they are actually raising the Jedi that will be a part of that prequel generation quickly. That's going to be coming upon them. So I think there's a lot of fruitful stories you can tell here, and we're 87 years or however many years in front of the prequels. So you tell me some. Don't mess around here and try to solve mysteries that in T-Mitch, I think you called a lot of these plot points out weeks ago. If you try to present something that's obvious to me as a mystery, I'm going to get tired of the subterfuge. You know what I mean? If it's all just, there's a quarter behind your ear. Eventually, I'm gonna realize you're doing that. There's not actually a quarter behind my ear. Right. And the next time you reach back behind, I'm gonna make a face, and you're gonna pull out a quarter, and I'm gonna be like, "Well, that's."
You knew that was there. You put that there.
I seen that.
And T. Mitch, I agree with you that the Jedi. Why couldn't they see this coming? I mean, why aren't they?
Yeah, you know what?
Not fight like.
You know what makes this crazy though? So I just thought about this. So, like we're talking about, if the Jedi didn't see it coming, so I'll play devil's advocate. So, like you're saying, the Jedi didn't see it coming. Master Yoda was early in his training. Okay, cool. I understand that. So then why, and this is Storytelling 101, this is Star Wars 101, okay? So if that's the case, okay, I'll follow you. So then why does Vanessa have the ability to see into the past, to read people, a dead person, keep in mind, not even live, so she can read into the past, read a dead person, and then understand a story, but yet Yoda has no ability to know that Saul is like, Luke is slipping to the dark side, and everybody's lying behind him. Like, explain that then, if that's the case.
Because keep in mind, the scene when she bent over him and you think she got some information from him?
She learned the whole story. She was reading his mind. That was the whole scene. And they showed that when? They showed it also in Ahsoka. So that was a new force ability in Ahsoka that for some reason between Ahsoka and the High Republic was forgotten. But okay, like I said, this is believable.
It's just interesting that she used that information to craft a story that would fit the evidence, which is the best.
So
if you're going to lie to the police,
she
guys,
made it up.
If you're going to lie to the police, the first thing you have to have is a command of the evidence that exists, because otherwise they'll be able to find evidence that will contradict your story. Yeah. So you have to structure a story based on the evidence. Now, the good news for the Jedi as an investigative agency is that when you do that and you're being honest, that's what happens. The evidence does match the story of what actually happened. But there's always going to be some sort of gaps. And, to talk about the other shows that we're watching now, House of the Dragon is doing this, where they're not showing you an explicit detail, like, did this character say this thing, right? For not to spoil anything from I'll just do something from last year. So if you have not watched House of the Dragon, you plan on it, what are you doing? It's on Max. Go watch it and come back and watch the rest of this podcast. But there's a scene where Damon is reported to have said something about a dead baby that's not necessarily complimentary, right? The character over there. And they don't actually show Damon saying that thing, right? They don't show him. So the evidence that we're presented of what happened or didn't happen is interesting, because you have to infer yourself from what you've seen whether or not he did this terrible thing, right? So I think that there's a lot of space here for that sort of ambiguity and for there to be some sort of comeuppance here for the Jedi. And we know they will get it. We know the Jedi are going to get it. So we know that every time they do this, it's a terrible idea. So I want to see the show showing that march toward destruction. And showing how the Jedi reacted to this, and how now, I would imagine they should really way overreact to this. If you want to show me a story next season, show me a Jedi outfit that looks a lot like just a black suit of armor. You know what I mean? Where they're just cold and militarily efficient and just ready to cut people's heads off if they have to. And they're kind of looking forward to it maybe a little bit.
Right.
Or maybe a lot.
Maybe a lot. Maybe that's all they're going to do.
Finestra, the closing scene is her saying, Master, there's something you need to know.
Yeah.
Do you think that this... So what if Yoda's like, I knew that? Or what if he says, bullshit?
What if he just takes a cigar out of his mouth
and says...
What if he pulls a cigar out of his mouth and just goes, did those rooms over there at the Senate believe that shit? Just puff out a big puff of smoke. And that's how season 2 starts.
It's crazy to foreshadow that, because she can't lie to him because he can read her mind, right? So what do? Tell him oh, we fucked up? You didn't know about this, but we fucked up, right?
She's going to have to come clean. She's going to have to come clean on that one.
Well, she doesn't. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So she leaves it nowhere to go. But also, she has to explain, now that you lied to the Senate, you created a story that he took his own life, which we don't know. You lied to the Senate that there are two dark side, or as they alluded to, two Jedi that are rogue. So there's 2 rogue Jedi now. That's now an issue that the Jedi don't have under control. And if, like I said, if we did that story and kept these people out, that's great. We have 2 defected Jedi. We can't track them down. They're on the loose. You lied. And that creates a better conflict, right? That creates a story. And then leading into season 2, we can do the Plagueis thing, because obviously we're going to get Palpatine. And Plagueis dies at some point in season 2, obviously, because Palpatine kills his master in this search of this whole Virgins. So this is that's what I'm saying. There is good meat here. And that's why it should have been higher than a 4, because I can see what she wanted to do. But I'm saying it from a canon perspective of books that come in this time frame. That, like I said, to me, this is like Leslie Headley didn't read any source material, or even could talk to, once again, Dave Filoni, which is crazy, because there are legs to this story. We know there's this time frame, this 89-year period. We can piece a little bit of this together because there are canon novels in this time. So the story started off well, and there's good points, but you just can't start doing this other shit and cloud stuff, because there are literally novels out in this time frame that says bro, what you're doing is bullshit. It's just not real.
You talking about novels as in stuff that was done after not the whole legacy stuff, the stuff that's after legacy stuff, right?
It's listed as canon. It's listed as the Darth Plagueis books.
So they didn't take all the stuff from Legends and trash all of it, just everything that pretty much happened after the original trilogy. That's the story that they were we're just telling a totally different story. A lot of those prequel era novels that are just coloring in. The movies are still good. A lot of these super prequels are good. I think Knights of the Old Republic is probably still pretty good. I don't know that stuff though. I'm sure someone could correct me if they felt like it, but who does? Who could possibly care? So let's talk about the time frame here, because 87 years before the Phantom Menace. I mean, I would say Sheev Palpatine's about 60 years old. Phantom Menace. I'd say Dooku's like an 80-year-old guy. You know, seeing leaders that old now, I'm thinking that's how old he is. Yeah. So you're talking T-minus 7 to 10 years until Dooku shows up. About 30 years for Palpatine to be born, unless there's something else about him suppressing his aging or something like that. And he is Manny Jacinto, although that would be, you know, Ian McDiarmid does not look like Manny Jacinto in any meaningful way. Those guys do not look the same, even if the attempt on his life left him scarred and deformed. And who hasn't that happened to? I don't know. I think there's, even if a time jump here, you only time jump, I think, 10 years, and you tell the story of, you know, I want to see the pendulum swing back. I want to see the mistake the Jedi make next is being too prepared to deal with this, like way too prepared, to the point where they're just like ready, and everyone can tell they're ready for something and they don't know what it is.
Well, based on what you say, we kind of get a 20-year time jump. We got that in the Tales of the Jedi, the Young Dooku episode. So, like I said, there's stuff that she wasn't paying attention to that like clouds the story a little bit, because so in 20 years they become ultra proficient, and then once again you have this other Jedi that's like kind of conflicted, because we saw what Dooku did in that episode.
I think you hit on this, T. Mitch, and it's why are you tying this so closely
right?
to the prequel? Why you don't have to do that? If you want to, and I think if Leslie Headland wants to tell her own story that's not super like directly related to the stuff we've already seen, I think that would be great. Do that, but
correct.
Showing us too much of how it ties in anchors it, and it really limits what the possible outcomes could be, right? Like you can't have all the Jedi die and we're starting from nothing, right? Like that can't happen.
That goes into like, I guess, the whole mandate right now with Filoni to fill in gaps and stuff, fill in like histories and everything, you know?
Yeah.
So even if he wasn't directly writing this and everything, if the mandate was to you do your story, but make sure that we're filling in, you know, holes and stuff, and like, you know, there's history and stuff, even though we said it way before like the Phantom Menace, it's still certain things we need to adhere to. And maybe that's a problem with, you know, the fault of him not being that much, you know, overseeing this. I want to go also back to why tease a character that just shows up out of nowhere and about 15 minutes before the episode ends and you don't come back to it. That's like a smoking gun. That's in an episode that just fails. You know, like who is that? Like why are you teasing it there? If you teased it maybe at the very end, okay, it's like a end credits or whatever, I can see that. But you tease it like almost 15 minutes before the episode ends and expect us to not be like, what is that? You know, I thought that was a failure.
It just goes back to that pacing issue, man. It's that pacing issue. Like ending the episode randomly last week instead of on "See you in Hell, Jedi," which is a great line. She slams the thing shut and we go smash by. That's how I would cut it, right?
That would have been a better ending for last week's episode for sure. Yeah,
and you know, not that I want to sit here and nitpick on the things I do differently, because that's not how, you know, that's not how authorship works.
But who do you guys think that is? Like,
it has to be Darth Plagueis. It's Darth Plagueis. It has to be. But why he's in hiding, like like I said, she has a lot more. This like Darth Plagueis is probably like is probably one of the most vicious Sith Lords. Now, not necessarily as far as like battle, so he's not really, but like you talk about Palpatine and the mental manipulation, like this guy was on level with him as far as like dark, like the twist. He was more of like, if we talk about like your video game characters, he was more like the magician, right? He didn't necessarily do combat. He was like maybe Sith lightning, a lot of Sith pushes. He wasn't hand to hand. He was more like you know, more of he used more of the living force rather than more lightsaber combat. So that was a little weird. You know what I just thought about a second ago though? So like, since they're the same person, right? So they're not twins, they're the same, just whatever. She still has to explain that. Can we explain, so this is why I don't understand this story. Is that not Osha? Is that really May? Because like when they were in that cave and Osha or whoever this person is unlocked the ability to manipulate the stranger or Kamir, whatever. Remember that at the beginning of the scene? She doesn't have that ability because her sister ascended. So how are you this strong if you didn't ascend but your sister did, right? So like I need that explained. Like that's what I'm saying. Is there another twist? Like is that still May? Like or that face tattoo?
We don't know.
Why is the unascended sister so much more valuable than the ascended one? I guess that's a good question.
Correct.
Because shouldn't
she
they
have
be
all the power? She would be stronger than her, right? She has the witch abilities. Like that's crazy.
Unless it was just
we didn't see the tattoo anymore either on her forehead. Like that just disappeared. That was
because they had the same haircut because that probably saved them a lot of time. So all they had to do was change clothes, and then nothing else about the performance at all. By the way, nothing to differentiate the two. Not even the way they carry themselves. No. So it was probably real easy just to flip back and forth since she didn't have to really change anything at all about her character or persona.
So yeah, I don't
supposed to be the same character,
right? Yeah, and that's just a shortcut for we couldn't figure out a way to make them seem different. And it's weird because I like the performance that she gives us as May with Soul here, and I like the performance that we got before all this happened the first episodes. It's weird. It's just
it'll be some sort of revelation because even when she was being interrogated by Vanestra on Coruscant, there's some it was weird. It was just weird. Like we weren't really sure who that was. Definitely mind scraped. Sith mind scraped.
Yeah.
But
because they do this now, right?
We didn't see the tattoo to really be sure. Like Osha had the tattoo on her forearm or on her shoulder, and May had the witch marking. But both of those were gone or were not shown to us. We don't know. Actually, we don't know.
So who made Kamir this formidable in this short of a time also? Like, do we so now he has all these abilities. He's like the greatest combat fighter in the world. And now he has the ability to use the Force to where he can erase somebody's mind, but it only takes him 5 seconds. So like, where does this come from, right?
It's pretty powerful.
I mean, I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. Kamir could have just said something like, do you want to go meet my master at the end of that? And I'd have been like,
exactly.
Yeah. Or that's it.
If they would have showed him like walking towards them, like just foreshadow.
Or he walks away and she's like, what are we going to do next? And he says, oh, my master will tell you. And you're like, oh man, I don't know. Again, I'm getting back to, I think that there's just more here than they gave us. That's disappointing.
You know what the show echoes directly, like I told you guys, literally that, and it's the same thing, like the black girl in Obi-Wan. This was the same exact thing.
No, I think that she was worse, man.
Inquisitor.
I'm talking about the Inquisitor who was like turned and then like it's the same
turned,
thing.
unturned,
it's repackaged. Like it's literally that story repackaged.
So what? So you kill the thing that's making you upset, and it makes you more eviler. I don't know. That to me, I mean, you would think that Osha would chill out.
It would pay off. Like you'd get over it.
That's even. Now they're even, and she's still doing evil. So now she's like, how do you talk yourself into doing that? I don't know.
Or if your sister is like your sister, right, and you're the one, like, why would you do that? So, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're clearly, and the crazy part is, so they're stronger than Kamir at this point, right? The sister's stronger. Why wouldn't she just battle him? His lightsaber's broken, and it's 2v1. So you're telling me that this guy was going to take both of you down because you're so powerful, and as the Sith move, we all know the Padawan's usually stronger than the Master, and the Padawan strikes the Master down, right? So, like,
on purpose, because the Master wants a new body.
Yes, so...
You can pick a worse body than Manny Jacinto, let's be clear.
It just makes it crazy. That, like,
pretty sturdy.
So she saved her sister. She got her back, and then like, oh yeah, I'll find you again. How? Like,
why wouldn't May want after all of this and being proven correct by the things that happened, right? Being proven that yes, the Jedi were covering this up, and yes, they did murder Mom, and not like all that. Why wouldn't she want to go back to the Sith?
Her sister. Yeah, why would she?
Why not just go along? Like, is it just a two-seater? Like we just brought the coupe, so we can't. There's no one. You'll have to get a different ride, but we'll see you at the meetup spot. Like that's kind of weird. So I don't know. It seems like you had to do this because when you wrote this episode first, that's how you wrote it, and all the things had to happen before so we could arrive at this conclusion, which is how Agatha Christie wrote, right? But she was writing murder mysteries. They're mysteries. They're not. Again, it's not the story of a man racing another man or something like that, which is this, or a man fighting a man, or it's not the story of Rocky. Like Rocky, you wouldn't want to see all out of joint. You would want to see, Rocky trains, Rocky fights, Rocky loses, the end, right? That's what you want to see.
So,
you don't want to see.
Are you saying
in a Rocky story,
Soul's murder is the actual story?
Yeah,
like that's the end. That's the.
What's the story? I think the story of season 1 is how Soul was obsessed with this virgins and and couldn't shake it for whatever reason, like almost like a black hole, and it killed him eventually, and he had to do all this stuff to try to survive, and it just it was only just delaying the inevitable, which is
the big mistake for this season was that I could care less about Soul. Like that was a
big misdirection though, because was Soul the acolyte? Like that's what I'm saying. Like if we have this mystery, and we've seen it, like you said, why if they wouldn't like in the Watchmen was told this way, right? It's not the direct ending, but it's about 20 minutes before the ending. Why didn't they start with the ending like this, 20 minutes before, and then you go backwards, but do it linearly forward, and then you get to this point, and then you finish the story off? Like this jumped forward, like you know what I mean? She jumped too many times. You can't jump forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. We saw that they tried it with Boba Fett, it failed. Every time they try this, it fails. It got better with Ahsoka, but even then, like the time jumping and stuff, maybe it's disjointed in the series based show, but in a movie you can pull it off. Like when I watched the Watchmen movie, I was like, okay, cool. But when you do these series based shows, it's a weekly format. I just don't think it pays off properly.
Well, I mean, with Watchmen, they had like source material to benefit them and everything.
So did this person.
No. I'm talking.
Watchmen was a puzzle.
Yes,
Watchmen was a puzzle. It did have a revelation that was in it.
Right.
It does have a character that does experience time non-linearly. So those are reasons that it's more appropriate for them to tell the story out of joint than it is for them to present it out of joint here. And since there's not a natural reason to present it to me like this, it feels like you did it on purpose. And if you're going to do that, it has to have a payoff.
Cute. Correct. You try to be really cute where you didn't really have to be.
It's like if you're running a buck sweep and having all this mixed direction in the backfield and then trying to pitch out left, but the outside linebacker's been standing there the whole time and your running back dies because the outside linebacker just crushes him as soon as the ball gets there. So if you're telegraphing what you're going to do, you better do it fast. You better not mess around and not hit them all at once. You have to hit them fast if you're going to hit them directly. That's why jabs are fast. If you throw a slow jab, that's bad. You're gonna get hit in the face, right? Because you got to drop your fist to throw it. So but that doesn't mean it's garbage, or that doesn't mean that there's nothing that would bring me back for another season, or that I think it's gotta be eliminated.
They dropped a big enough cliffhanger where you just have to see where this goes. I mean, you talk about baby, I'm talking about Baby Yoda. Bring Yoda in. You want to see, okay, you're bringing somebody familiar to the audience, that the audience can take into this to season 2.
Who knows? We don't know who that is, honestly.
That could be a non-Yoda. That could be. I could be. I mean, who knows? Maybe Yoda and Grogu.
That could be somebody of a different of one of Yoda's like species or whatever, and not necessarily Yoda himself.
I guess. Sure.
Oh yeah, we can try.
I mean, they're going to show us a nearly geriatric Yoda. They're going to show us a Yoda that probably is like,
Well, this Yoda would be pretty spry still.
Yoda was pretty spry in the prequel trilogy. He did some spry stuff.
I mean, I think that she does. I will say this. I think she does deserve a chance to right her wrong. So I do think she deserves a season 2. But if I can say anything, just please, because we're getting closer to now, and now we have source material from where we are at. If Filoni, if you're listening to this, which you're probably not, can you please, let's just be more involved, right? And just tell the story, because we know we're hitting a time frame that we have knowledge, we have data, just follow the book. Just follow the plan, right? Just stick to the damn script, right? And you can tell your own story, which there was a lot of meat on the season. I thought we established that, right? We have this Khmer. There are characters. I feel like there's some meat on the bone. So, like, stop being, just stop trying to be clever and just tell a good story. And I think they can
Cut out
definitely
the cleverness for next season. It doesn't have to be a puzzle box. Please, don't do that again. Just stick, get
overthinking.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And give us the fight we want now that we know that Vanessa knows that that's her Padawan. Well, how did they not fight? How do you allude to that? She has a lightsaber, as Hitch said. So literally, she has a lightsaber whip, and that's all the fuck I've ever seen was her batting a damn moth with a lightsaber whip. That's all we saw for a lightsaber whip. Okay.
Yeah, you could cut out almost that whole everything that happened there on that planet except for the fight. It could have happened anywhere. It could have happened on whatever Bardock or whatever.
Well, we're going to see season 2. We're going to get Khmer's flashback of how he escaped her and how she whipped his back up, which is why he has the scars, because they foreshadowed that. So there will be a Khmer prequel episode as well. Do we understand why him and Vanessa fell out and how he?
I'll give them. I will generously grant them one episode.
One episode.
One, not 2, not 3, not 4. One. You get one episode to explain to me, and by the end, I better be excited to see what he does about it. Not thinking to myself, I can't wait for 5 episodes from now when they actually tell me how he did it.
Yeah,
I'll be mad if that happens.
Yeah. Please kill. Yeah, I'd love to see them, as I thought, kill the rest of the Jedi as well, though. So with this Acolyte, I'm glad that all 4 of them did die. I did not want to see Saul make it out of this. So there was still some darkness in this, right? That we still got, the payoff for all the Jedi that committed this crime died. So I just thought that they made the Jedi too dark and almost made the Acolyte almost, too evil. They flopped it too much. So they did pay for their sins. However, to me, it made the Sith they felt kill those motherfuckers. You know what I mean? It made the Sith to me I want to be a Sith. I would sign up for that. Because they're
trying to be a cop.
For revenge.
Yeah, they're correcting they corrected it wrong and made it right. So that's not
the essential thing with police is that they're there to protect and serve and stuff, but you still have bad cops out there. But it doesn't really taint what the definition of what police are supposed to do. People still want to be police.
Correct.
Justice isn't the same thing as revenge. Those are 2 different things. And one is about your own satisfaction personally, and the other is about, restoration and correction. And can they be similar? Sure. But you can't have revenge without a personal interest. You can't be a disinterested, objective person and get revenge. That's just not, those are incompatible ideas. Revenge has to be subjective. So there's a big difference between the 2. And if you replace one with the other, it's real bad. Bad things happen because revenge is a cycle that never stops once you get it started.
What was John Wick?
John Wick was definitely revenge, man. Are you kidding? And that was a satisfying thing. So revenge can be satisfying, but of course those people are fictional. And I think if you woke up and there were 100 murders in New Orleans last night, you'd be like,
oh, yeah. Well,
all headshots, by the way. You'd be scared. I'd be scared of that guy too. But you wouldn't put him in charge. You wouldn't be like, that's the person I want making, running my tax rate. I wouldn't want that. Would you guys want that? Anything you do is just death? Cross the street the wrong way, death, underseason the chicken, death, overseason it, believe it or not, death.
Yeah. Well, I mean, guys, this definitely was a great episode. A lot of the commentary, as you guys will see and hear from us, it's starting to leak on the internet, obviously. I guess Plagueis is pretty much confirmed that is the character. So that is a foreshadow of that is definitely Darth Plagueis. But also there's I can't wait to do our kind of overall review and dive into this.
You got to do a better tee up of Plagueis. That's piss poor. That's piss poor, man. You got to do a better tee up of Plagueis.
Yeah, that definitely is a tee up, but some of the other stuff that I'm reading is starting to come out now. I mean, Leslie Headland will probably give her commentary. So we'll look that up. That'll probably be on Screen Rant or whatever. She'll do an interview post.
They can tell us all about what they were trying to do,
and
we'll keep commenting on what they actually did.
And we'll review that when she comes
We'll
forward.
review that too.
You'll
Yeah.
get points at the end of the season.
Yeah,
you
we'll
don't get
definitely.
points
Yeah,
you thought you wanted to tell. You only get points for what you put on the screen.
Correct.
That's why
Yeah.
it's not a 10. They'd all be 10s.
I'm interested to do.
You wanted to do.
Correct. So yeah, that'll be probably our next discussion is kind of the fallout of this and what we can dig up from the commentary she comes up with. So it's been a fun discussion. It's not been as heated as you guys might have anticipated us being. I mean, I'm kind of tapped out, so it is what it is. Like at the end of the day, thank you Disney, I guess, for giving me something to watch, giving me some more content. But yeah, guys, it's just one of those things. I'm glad we got to the end. So.
The end.
It was ordeal for T Mitch there.
It is what it is. Yeah, so yeah, thanks, I guess, Disney. I really appreciate it. Money Heist Star Wars Edition was great. So you know, yeah. It's until we guys see you guys soon. This is the way.
This is the way. Was it the way though? I mean,